You know, there's something about a great escape story that just pulls you in, right? I mean, the idea of someone outsmarting this massive system with nothing but their own guts and creativity, it's just fascinating. But what happens when that incredible escape isn't really the end of the story? What if it's just the start of something else entirely? We're going to look at some of the most amazing breakouts in history and the often bitter realities that came after.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. What would you do? Dig a tunnel? Hijack a helicopter? Or would you come up with something so wild, so out there, that nobody would ever see it coming? It's pretty amazing what the human mind can cook up when freedom is the only thing that matters.
But here's the big twist in all of this. For the master escape artists we're talking about today, getting free was, well, it was temporary. See, this isn't just about how they got out. It's about what happened next. It's about realizing that escaping the walls doesn't always mean you escape your fate. Sometimes the end of the road is right back where you began. Or, somewhere even worse. Okay, first up, let's do a quick run-through of some absolute legends of the breakout world. These are people whose methods were so bold, so audacious, they practically became famous for them, even if the freedom didn't last. 3. That's the number of times a French criminal named Pascal Payet escaped from prison using a hijacked helicopter. Yeah, you heard me right. Not once, 3 separate times. He was literally plucked off a prison roof in 2001, then he organized a chopper breakout for his buddies in 2003, and then, just to prove a point, I guess, he did it again for himself in 2007. I mean, the nerve is just staggering. So what's the ultimate irony here? Payet got so good at escaping, he became this kind of folk hero, a true legend. And because of that, after they finally caught him the last time, the authorities basically said, never again. He's been in heavy isolation ever since, constantly being moved from prison to prison, so he can't even think about planning another breakout. His own genius, his own reputation, is what built the walls of his final prison. All right, let's talk about the Texas 7. On December 13th, 2000, 7 inmates pull off this perfectly planned escape from a maximum security prison. For 42 days, they were basically ghosts, but everything changed on Christmas Eve. During a robbery, they murdered a police officer, Aubrey Hawkins. And that one act, it changed everything. The manhunt went from a state issue to a national obsession. Their fate was completely sealed. One of them ended his own life, and the other 6, they were all captured and sent to death row. It's just a brutal reminder that sometimes the real prison is made of the choices you make on the outside. Okay, out of all the wild escape plans, Richard Lee McNair's might just be the most creative. The man literally mailed himself to freedom. He was working in the prison mailroom and secretly built this little escape pod inside a pallet of mail bags, even rigged up a breathing tube. Then he just climbed in, sealed it up, and got shipped out like regular old cargo. Think about the 1,000 things that could have gone wrong there. It's just unbelievable. And get this, after he escaped, he gets stopped by a cop in Canada. The entire thing is caught on the officer's dash cam, and you can watch as McNair just calmly, coolly talks his way out of it. It's incredible. He managed to stay on the run for 18 months, a true ghost. But like with so many of these stories, his luck eventually ran out. He was recaptured, and that perfect escape just became a temporary vacation. So those stories show you the sheer audacity it takes just to get out. But now we're going to slow it down a bit. We're going to take a deeper dive into 3 of the most powerful escape stories ever told. These are the legends whose escapes and their recaptures have left a permanent mark on history. Coming in at number 3, well, it has to be the most famous prison break in American history, right? The 1962 escape from Alcatraz. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers did what everyone said was impossible. They spent months digging through their cell walls with spoons, of all things. And to fool the guards, they made these incredibly realistic dummy heads out of soap, toilet paper, and hair from the barbershop. Then one night, they slipped into the freezing San Francisco Bay on a raft made of raincoats and just vanished. And this is where the story splits in 2. The official story from the FBI is that they drowned. I mean, the bay is no joke, and no bodies were ever found. But the legend is so much better. It says they made it, they survived, and they lived out their lives in total secrecy. But think about what that freedom would actually mean. They'd have to become ghosts, erase their past, never see their families again, always looking over their shoulder. Is that freedom? Or is it just a different kind of prison, one without walls? 4. This number stands for the number of people Brian Nichols killed on March 11, 2005. He was in the middle of a trial in Atlanta when he overpowered a deputy, stole her gun, and just went on this horrific rampage. He killed the judge on his case, a court reporter, another deputy, and later a federal agent. It was one of the most violent, shocking courthouse escapes in American history. So after this massive manhunt, Nichols forces his way into a woman's apartment and takes her hostage. But what happened next, it's just not what you'd expect. The hostage, a woman named Ashley Smith, she didn't panic. Instead, she just started talking to him. She told him about her own struggles, and she read to him from a book called The Purpose-Driven Life. And somehow, in this incredible turn of events, she convinced him to give himself up peacefully. His violent run for freedom was over in about a day, not with a shootout, but with an act of grace he absolutely didn't see coming. And for our number one story, we have to go way back. Way before supermax prisons and high-tech security, there was the Tower of London. And back in 1597, a Jesuit priest named John Gerard, who was locked up just for his Catholic faith, pulled off one of the most incredible escapes in English history. See, for Gerard, the escape wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a whole new life on the run. In a scene straight out of a movie, he slid across a rope that his allies had stretched over the tower's moat. But his so-called freedom just meant he had to live in the shadows, continuing his forbidden ministry, always one step ahead of the people hunting him. For him, being free wasn't a place he arrived at. It was a constant, lifelong state of escaping. So when you pull back and look at all these stories together, this really powerful theme starts to emerge. You can be brilliant enough, brave enough, and daring enough to break through steel and concrete, but escaping the consequences, escaping your own fate, well, that's a whole different game. And the reasons they all end up back into a cage are as different as the escapes themselves. You have guys like El Chapo, whose ego did him in. He tried to get a movie made about himself, and that led the authorities right to his doorstep. You have the Texas 7, who made a terrible choice that turned them from fugitives into wanted murderers. For Pascal Payet, it was his own fame that built his new prison. And for some, it's just the most unbelievably cruel irony. And maybe no story captures that cruel irony better than Kazimierz Piechowski's. This man pulled off an almost unthinkable escape from Auschwitz in 1942. He stole an SS officer's uniform and literally drove himself and his friends out the front gate. He survived the war, fighting the Nazis, only to be arrested and imprisoned by his own country's new communist government. Think about that. A man who escaped a Nazi death camp was thrown back in a cell by the very people who were supposed to be his liberators. His words here just say it all. So it all leaves us with this one big final question, doesn't it? Every single one of these people had that moment, that taste of freedom, that first breath of air outside the walls. But if that freedom just leads you to a new prison, a prison of loneliness, or hiding, or an even harsher sentence, what does it really mean to be free? Were they ever truly free at all? It's something to think about.